Hi there, I'm Beth Cougler Blom, and this is Facilitating on Purpose, the space where we talk about designing and facilitating learning. One of the things I love right now about being a facilitator and actually being in the world today is the focus that we are putting on getting to know ourselves as people and getting to know other people in our spheres and really trying to see the whole person and show up to wherever we work as a whole person as well. That's why I'm so pleased to be able to bring this particular conversation to you. This is a conversation that I had with Erica Barnhart. She's both a professor and an entrepreneur. She has been at the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance in the state of Washington for many years, and she has also been the leader and founder of her company Klaxon, which helps clients communicate with clarity and confidence. Today, we're tapping into Erica's skills as a communicator, not communicating with other people, but communicating with ourselves. That's the focus of our conversation. It's really about taking charge of our self-talk and really trying to use the skills that we have as facilitators or that we're building as facilitators to have conversations with ourselves that we need to have in order to be able to grow and develop and be able to show up in the world that we are in today as our full, awesome human beings. Whether you are fully aware of how you talk to yourself in your life or not, I think you should listen to this conversation because I know it opened up my eyes to some of the things that I might be saying to myself. And I actually generally think that I talk to myself fairly well. But I think we all have things that we can work on and we can notice and we can practice noticing around our self-talk and what it looks like. So tune in, keep listening. Eric and I have a great conversation about facilitating conversations with ourselves. I hope you enjoy this episode. Erica, I'm so happy that it's you that we get to have a conversation because we've had a long time relationship with each other as friends, and I'm so happy that we get to have this connection as work colleagues in this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you. And of course, with your listeners.
Thank you for being here. And maybe we should just say briefly, we've known each other for, I want to say almost 25 years.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
know,
what
I
your
don't I don't
recollection
know that
is?
we need to do the math on that really.
A long time, but we don't get to see each other very often. We are in two different countries, although we're not that far away, but I've always appreciated you and what you bring to the world and your work. And let's make this all about you today and what you're sharing with the world right now.
Thank you, thank you.
One of the things I know we have in common is our facilitation work. And do you want to say a little bit about that? Like you, like me, I think this is correct that we both, I mean, we met while we were both working at the University of British Columbia, and we were both on the administrative side, like managing education, let's say. Was that your first foray into the education world, just briefly? And then tell us where you went from there, because now you're teaching and you've been doing it for a long
I
time.
know, I know. The long dramatic pause is I think that the answer is yes to that. Yeah. That UBC was my first higher ed professional experience. It just seems so long ago.
Yeah, you've done a lot since then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot, I've done a lot. A lot has happened. Yeah, but UBC was the first time, and like you said, at that time we were on the administrative side. Now I'm on the faculty side at the University of Washington. So I've been swimming in the higher ed waters for a long time. And then, of course, have always, through the past 21 years, also had a consulting practice, consulting and coaching, which means some facilitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you've been doing this for a long time. But there's that content that you've taught for so long. But today we want to talk about facilitating conversations with ourselves, which is something that maybe we facilitators don't talk about very often.
It's interesting. I don't know that facilitators think more or less about facilitating conversations with themselves. What I can say is that very few people proactively take charge of their self-talk, right? So, we can call it inner dialogue or inner narrative or whatever you want to call it, facilitating conversations with yourself. And facilitating is such a great word for it. I mean, actually what we would want to be doing. It's not what the vast majority of people do. And, most of my work is being at the intersection of language and leadership. So I talk to a lot of leaders about how they're showing up as leaders, but that starts with how are you showing up for yourself? And it's so interesting because I mean, they're fabulous leaders. They're so committed to the team and the mission and all the rest of it. And when I say, how are you showing up for yourself? How are those conversations going for yourself? They're like, "Ugh, nah," like it's they'll talk about it, right? Like they know my approach, so they know that we're probably going to go there. But there's such high contrast. And I think this part is especially true for facilitators or anyone who, makes a living or their profession is in front of others. Because, the art of facilitation, as you are much more expert than I am, and your listeners are so versed in, is the art of listening to others and guiding the conversation. And so then if you hold up the mirror to yourself, it's like, how attentively am I listening to this ongoing conversation that I'm having with myself? On average, adults use 15,000 words a day externally, so with others, but talking, texting, comes in many shapes and sizes, but on average, it's 15,000 words. The evidence is a little tougher, right? Because we're relying on brain scans, but the best that we can find is that we say about 60,000 words to ourselves,
Wow.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
That's big.
And that's not even getting at like, that we toggle between conscious, subconscious, conscious, subconscious. So some of those are going to be in the subconscious. Come back to that because it's super important. But it's like 4x the number of words that you say externally, you're saying to yourself, and yet we're not attentive to them in the same way.
It's such an important stat. It's funny because we don't often talk a lot about stats in the world of facilitation, but that's a really, really important one. That 4 times.
Well, let me give you some more stats that are just
Okay.
going to completely bum everybody out. And simultaneously, they're going to be like, yeah, I resemble that. So 90%, 99% of people have self-talk. There are some that don't. God bless them. But the vast majority of adults have self-talk, which would be great news, right? If we were facilitating it with our best and highest interest in mind, but we're not. And therefore 92%, not therefore, but and 92% of it skews negative.
Yeah, that's not surprising, isn't it? Considering there's so much trauma in the world. I don't know. There's internal, there's external pieces around that. I don't know. It's not surprising. Yeah.
And then the question we have to ask ourselves is why? Like if you think about it, it's like that on its face is weird. Because, in a time when there's so much chaos, so much confusion in the world, and things over which we have very little agency or even control, which is the tricky word, you actually have complete agency over your self-talk, setting aside if you have some mental health challenges that make it harder for you. That's real as well. But you have so much more influence over what you're telling yourself.
Yeah. So it's even more important right now to tell ourselves the right messages and have that. What's the word? It's not productive. What's the word? Positive self-talk with ourselves? What's the word you use?
So I like to think about self-talk as in service to ourselves or healthy. Because if we say positive, if we say negative, which almost all the literature is just to say negative or positive, and I really bristle at that because it's so binary. And we are nuanced humans. As humans, we are nuanced, we are complex, and we love that. And also, you have that self-talk because at some point it did serve you. It did, so like your subconscious mind cares about nothing except your safety. So it's looking for patterns and it's going to do everything in its power to repeat any pattern. It doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about joy. It doesn't even, but it doesn't care. It cares about safety. So it's looking for patterns. So most of our self-talk was installed when we were very young, before the age of 8. And at the time, it served us somehow. Right. And so this is why there's like, I'm too much, I'm not enough, these sort of, there's like a hit parade of, they're called automatic negative thoughts, ants. And there's a hit parade. And so when you take this step back and you really bring your prefrontal cortex into the equation, then you can just wonder, not judge or try not to judge. Is this still serving me?
Yeah, the act of noticing, it's like the leaders you work with, they have not noticed that self-talk yet, or they're noticing it and don't know what to do about it, but that act of starting to notice is so crucial to maybe what, turn the tide or something?
Yeah. So the framework I use is this three-step process, which is notice. And you could sit there for a long time because there's a lot to notice. But most people want to do something. And so it's very hard to then go to rewriting instantly. So two things. So it's notice, nope, and nudge. Notice, nope, and nudge. And the nope is just being like, nope, I that doesn't serve me anymore. And nope is so much more kind than no. Like, it is actually hard. I would invite your listeners to try to say nope harshly. I mean, you can do it if you really put some, effort into it. But in general, it's going to come out with a lightness, which is what we want because we don't want to make those previous thoughts bad or wrong. Again, they served us. What we're saying is, nope, I'm good. You've done your service. You're noticing and you're taking some action and you're creating space to then wonder, like, all right, where do I want to nudge this? So we don't want to like replace because your subconscious is gonna be, nope, absolutely not. We're not, nope, right? Like, and your subconscious is powerful, right? Because it's always going. So you're just gonna nudge. Like, what is one tick kinder? What's the one word?
Okay, so let's think about it in terms of what a trainer or facilitator, or there's so many words, educator, faculty member might say to themselves, and then take us through the three-step process. Like, what's an example of some inner thought that would not be helpful that someone would say in that context?
So let's stick with a facilitation example because you're up in front of people. When you're up in front of people, I would say you're often very conscious of your appearance. And so if you think about the scripts that you've had about your appearance, they're pretty much the same. So you put yourself in a position of being critical of yourself in that way, right? So this is like a very basic example. And then we could talk about some others. I know for myself that I put a lot of thought. If I'm going to stand in front of people, I'm going to put like quite a lot of thought into it so that I'm not thinking about it. Because if I have any self conscious, I'll be like, I look like a Teletubby. Right? Okay. Is this helpful for me to be like trying to listen and facilitate? And then I'm telling myself I look like Teletubby, And so, one, I do take a lot of, I rarely will miss in terms of knowing that I feel great. But when I do, and earlier on, I was simultaneous, like I couldn't be as present with that listening, right? And the facilitating because I was being mean to myself.
Yeah, gets in the way big time. That's not what we're there to do.
It gets in the way. And whether or not you notice it energetically, it is present.
Okay. Yeah, you might not be. Yeah, it's unconscious some of the time.
Some of the time, right? But energetically, it is still there. It is still there. And so if I were to play that out now, when I hear something like that, let's just stick in a facilitation example. I just be like, nope, 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 nope. And then I'll say to myself, be here, be here, be now. Like just come back to presence.
Nudge back. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
nudge.
that's the nudge with that one. I'm not gonna have a convo with my like inner dialogue in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just not the approach because then I'm not in service to the situation.
Yeah, you don't have time for that. You really have to just, I mean, it could be in the moment while you're in front of the group, couldn't it? And you're not going to sit there, have this inner dialogue for 2 minutes even. It has to be instantaneous to get you back on track.
Yeah, and that is kind of the power of nope. It's like you can notice a nope, and then you just wait till later, to do whatever unpacking of it that you want, or the like bigger nudge, but in the moment nudge is just that like be here now, be here with these people, be here for these people. So and all of that happens like very quickly, right? So that's like a 2 seconds. Notice, nope, be here now.
Would you say that most people have well-worn tracks of those kinds of thoughts? Like, given the time and the space to notice, I mean, you can get ahead of some of this stuff because some of the same old stories come up over and over again.
Yep. Yeah. So the work I do, in my coaching practice is about, the same structure, notice, nope, and nudge, but it is a period of time, even a day of noticing your thoughts can be mm, a lot, plenty. Usually we're looking at a week or more because then you're going to see the patterns. And again, it's the evidence is a little tough, but it looks like 80 to 90% of all of our thoughts are repeat. I'll repeat, installed it by age 8 on repeat, 92% negative. I mean, the cumulative effect of not being attentive, not facilitating your self-talk is profound. And we don't, it's funny, we don't talk about self-talk very much. And it's, part of it is people, I would say, are on a continuum of embarrassed to ashamed about their self-talk. Like it is a dirty little secret. Even for very successful, let me be clear, I've worked with very successful leaders. And then when we get to this part, they're like, oh no, I'm basically beating myself up all the time. And I'm always like, how's that working out for you? They're like, not great. I hate it.
Yeah. That's the wild thing, isn't it? That we think it just happens when we're whatever, let's just say in our 20s. Nope,
No.
it sticks around, doesn't it?
Well, like anything, like if it's on repeat, it's just more of it. And you're literally so I think it's really important to understand also that words matter because they are matter.
Say more about that.
We're actually, they have physicality. Like anything else in the known universe, the way that our self-talk shows up physically is in neural pathways. So, and as with anything, the more it's there, the deeper the groove. The deeper the groove, the easier it is to like slip into the groove. So if you think about it from a physical perspective and you really think about your brain, what grooves are deepest? And so again, coming back to this idea of like just nudging a little bit, noticing when you're about to slip into the groove. But first you have to know what your grooves are. You have to know what those grooves are. And literally like I invite slash give homework that is like write down the thoughts and then just you're going to be able to start putting a tick mark by them, like just count them up because we're not super unique with our self-talk.
Yeah, here's the greatest hits for me, but they're pretty common to all those other folks walking around. So how do you get them to notice? Like, I have an Apple Watch. I'm kind of thinking, do you set an alarm? And like every time it goes off, it's like, oh, what were you thinking about right now? Or I don't know. Like, how do you? I know you're a researcher, I think as well. It's almost like a little research approach to this to pull it out.
So what I'll say is, what are the natural moments in your day? Brushing your teeth, getting dressed, going to the gym, going on, like, what are those natural moments? So let's make a list of your natural moments. Okay. For the next day, again, whatever it is, each time that natural moment comes up, I want you to notice your thoughts, plural, whatever it is. Write them down. The other thing about writing them down, which can be really scary, but it's like anything, when you bring it out of the dark, it has less power. Anything in the day. I mean, this is why nighttime's scarier than daytime, even though the same stuff's going on. Right. So let's write it out. And I'll say you don't ever have to show me or anybody else. You're in choice about that. But if you really want quiet in your mind, share it. And again, it doesn't have to be with me because then you can see how goofy it is. I'll give you an example because it was like a really touching example. I was in India last year lecturing at a university there. And I was lecturing to a group of undergraduate English students. At the end, I was like, do you have any questions? And this young woman raises her hand and says, can you teach me to be less awkward?
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, I am so intrigued by this. Like, tell me why you think that you're awkward. And I said, have you always thought this about yourself? And she said, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, when I can't remember, she was 6 or 7 or something. Someone in her family told her she was awkward. And as I'm watching her again, facilitator, professor. So we're always reading the room, right? Always reading the room. And I'm noticing that her peers and some friends, are like looking at each other totally baffled by this. I mean, you can just see they're looking at her, they're looking at me, they're looking at each other. And so I said, to the young woman, would you be okay with people reflecting back whether or not that's true for you? And I'm not questioning that. I can see it and feel it. But is it true for others? Is it their experience of you? She's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. You tell she was afraid and she did it anyway. So I was so proud of her. And then I'm like, what do y'all think? And in comes this flood of like, that is the antithesis of how I experience you. You are the one that I turn to because of your grace and your poise. And like, you always have, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it just went on and on. She, of course, starts sobbing. So, it just,
As you would, right?
as you
Because
would.
people don't say this to us a lot about our nature in the world.
And she was brave enough to say it out loud. Now she didn't know where I was going to take it, right? But she had an inkling because I just lectured on self-talk. But she was brave enough to daylight it and create an opportunity to get an alternate reality. And that's part of it. Like, our inner world is real for us. It is true for us. And so having safe people that we can be like, I'm telling myself this, what do you think? Right? It has to be safe. If not, people can do more damage. Right. So, be attentive to who you let in. And then I saw her later. So we wrapped up and she was like, because I ended up saying to her in the classroom, it's possible that this is not as true as you think it is about you. Right. And I saw her later in the hallway and she was chatting with some of her friends and she came up and she said, can I talk to you for a second? I was like, absolutely. And she said, I think you changed my life. And I was like, I didn't change your life. You changed your life.
Yeah. What bravery to say that initial
Oh my God.
statement in how many people were in the room, too.
I lectured so many. I'm like, which one was this? But
Yeah.
like, 50
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean, it's big, right? To say that kind of what you think is a truth. It's not necessarily, as you've said, a truth, but that's brave. And look what happened. Amazing.
Yeah. And I wanted her to hear, like, I just showed up, right? She changed her life. And that's the opportunity that every single one of us have.
Yeah. For ourselves, but also for the people we work with too, like co-facilitators or our participants. I mean, there's a fine line of just not blab the whole, inner thing that's going on with you as a facilitator. It's not always appropriate. But I mean, the relationship building and maybe other benefits that can happen when we do recognize and notice these things for ourselves and potentially try to check them with other people, it's huge, right?
Right. It plays out, we just like to think because nobody else hears the words that they aren't present, but they're very present. And there's more of them. Let's just go back to the volume thing.
Yeah, each one of us would have, I don't know, how many of these well-worn tracks that we kind of bring forward for ourselves? Dozens?
Dozens. But really, most people have a hit parade of like 5 to 7-ish, and they go back to, I'm too much, not enough, I'm not lovable. I mean, they're really core wound type things to like a lot of stuff, for women in particular, but men also. A lot comes up around body image, a lot more than we might expect, which makes sense given how we're socialized. I won't be attractive because I don't make enough money. So there's like slight variations on a theme. We have more in common with our self-talk than difference.
What about in a teaching context? I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. People aren't going to believe that I know what I'm talking about. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like it, while standing in the room, what do we think about?
Listen, I've skipped over saying something really important. This is all about self-worth. At a very fundamental level, this question is the existential question of, am I worthy? Am I worthy for these people to listen to me and how I'm facilitating? Am I worthy of teaching and standing up? I mean, I've been teaching for a really long time, and I still have those moments. Of course, I have those moments. Now, of course, I have tools to be like, no, it turns out you know a thing or two about this, but I don't know everything. I just know different. I don't know better, but I know different. And I think that that's also often true for facilitating. You can hear differently because of perspective, but self-talk really ties, and whether or not it's I'm whatever it is, insert the thing, it comes back to, am I worthy? Am I therefore lovable? That's the underlying thing that we are wrestling with.
Absolutely. The thing for me is that when we even use the word facilitation, I know you're a language nerd. I mean, use the word facilitation instead of, I mean, different contexts, right? Lecture, you mentioned, teach. Like when I intentionally use the word facilitation, and many of us do, it does take the pressure off. It's easier to kind of have that kind of self-talk when you go, oh, I don't know all the things. No, the nudges. I don't have to know all the things because I'm facilitating learning here. I'm facilitating process, whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
we're all in this together. So there's that that key or that nudge that many of us use to go, I don't have to know it all. That's literally what the job is, to facilitate the whole room to share with each other. So it takes the pressure off.
I'd be curious for listeners if they're saying that to take the pressure off in a way that serves them or doesn't or undermines them.
Okay, so say more about that. What's the trap there?
I could imagine a scenario where you're perpetuating this, like, well, I'm just.
Oh, I
I
see.
mean, the word just is a big
Yeah,
flag,
yeah.
right?
So it's like, let's stand in. I mean, I still say, let's stand in our expertise. We know a lot. We're a certain age. We know a lot about what we do. But yet, we also know all sorts of other people know a lot as well. But what's the unhelpful message where, yeah, with the just message that people might fall into?
I think the adjustment that somebody who was saying that might want to make is something along the lines of like, and again, this is, let me back up and say, like, if we were to workshop this, if somebody's saying facilitate, and my job isn't to know everything, it's to bring out the best in the room, that sounds to my ears like from a place of agency and power. My concern would be for somebody who's like, I'm just here to facilitate, right? Like you hear in the tone of voice, you can say, I'm here to facilitate, or I'm just here to facilitate,
Yeah, yeah. It's the word
which is
just.
downplaying. Like I couldn't possibly actually be an expert. My job is only, it is just.
That came up for me in the world of volunteer management all the time when I was in that field, because I'm just a volunteer, was so unhelpful, because volunteers, of course, could be amazing experts in their field and they just happen to not get paid. It was a trigger word for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. Are there other words like that that a person could catch themselves saying?
Should.
Should? Yeah.
Should. Yeah. Don't should on yourself. Don't do that. Yeah. Should is a huge flag.
What's the phrase there? Like an example?
Anything. I should have I should be facilitating this differently. I should have noticed that shift in the room. I should have but often the past tense. I should go to the gym. Okay, well, what's underneath that? Like, why is it should rather than I could? I could go to the gym. I mean, it's like it's such a small shift, but it is actually like one of my favorite nudges, is notice all your shoulds and replace it with a could and just see what happens. Because could is about possibility.
Yeah.
Should is about judgment. Could is about possibility.
Should, I think, is about almost jealousy as well, because I think some people can say, oh, I should be more like her. I should be more like him as, that faculty member.
Yeah. So let's play that out. The difference between like I should be like him, her, they. I could be like them.
But
Do I even wanna?
yeah, could be like myself.
Yeah. And I think as, I'll just speak for myself as a woman who is of a certain age now, I feel so much more solid in who I am because, I did the work to get out of some default settings about what I should be like. And I'm like, I mean, I could. And then I would be like, I don't think I wanna. It turns out like yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my own daughter, who I don't tend to mention a lot on this podcast because I try to keep that separate, but I think she heard the phrase, be yourself, everyone else is taken,
Yep.
the other day. And it's,
Yep.
some of us have heard that before, and I think it's great, right? And we do, as we age, hopefully we come into a bit more of that and stand in it and go, no, I'm me. I said it's just me, but no, I don't mean it that way. It's like, I'm me in this work, and that's good. That's great.
And there's literally nobody else like you on the planet. I mean, when you really like take a step back, it's very existential, very meta. That's wild. That's wild. And then if we look at how much we build our lives based on comparison rather than reflection, that gets pretty trippy pretty quickly. If we look at things from an identity perspective, these choices, these choice points build our identity, and then sometimes your identity changes. I would say aging is one of those. It's different. It's different now. So some of that happens over the natural course of things. Sometimes there's life events, but whenever there's identity shifts, they're really hard. They're hard partially, of course, because our subconscious is freaking out. And they are these big opportunities to be like, but who do I want to be?
Yeah, let's reevaluate.
Like, well and truly, if I didn't have to share with anybody, if I didn't have to tell anybody, And you just start like, who would I really want to be?
Yeah. I think I've talked before that becoming a parent helped me, because if you think, well, I'm raising this live being, I think I can do some stuff, like it is for me anyway, I guess I shouldn't speak for everyone. For me, it was a confidence booster that I'm now raising a small being, and that's big. And I guess I can go out and teach because it's almost not as hard as being a parent.
Few things are as hard.
Yeah, absolutely. How does the body come into this? Because I know we wanted to talk about somatic awareness. It's so hard for so many of us to connect with our body. I know, maybe I should make it personal. For years, I think I went through, I don't know, I don't really know what I'm feeling in my body. I'm such a head person, very cognitive. And I don't know what it is, but that switch of trying to figure out and notice more that body piece, not just the mind piece, has been very transformational for me. And it's a work in progress. So, how do you work with folks to help them realize that that body piece is there around the noticing as well?
This is a great question. And that it's something I still have to work on. I too am very like neck up. It's my happy
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Same.
Neck down can be tougher. And I'm like by no stretch of the imagination expert in somatic awareness or any of those things. I will say that when you start doing the noticing of what's going on in your mind, then you can layer on this like, and where do I feel that in my body? And it's super interesting because some people I've worked with will feel different thoughts in different places in their body. Like, oh, I feel that in my throat. Oh, I feel that in my, that makes my heart hurt. Stomach. There's a lot of like, oh, I feel that in my stomach. And then some people, it's always the same spot. Like they feel everything in their stomach, as a for instance. And that makes a lot of sense because of the mind gut connection. So, this is why I'm going to come back to a phrase that I said earlier, because it really is a phrase that has helped me is be here now, which is a way for me to like be here now. I will put my hand on my heart a lot of the time when I want to like kind of settle, but also same thing, but maybe be weird. Like if I am lecturing to all of a sudden be like, be here now. Oh, okay. Let's talk about, like organizational leadership and strategy,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Some rooms you would be really right in there, but others not so
yeah,
much. Yeah.
not so much. Most of the time, not so much. Let's talk about polarity management. Be here now. Like we're a no to that. So you do have to have some of these tricks, right? So I'll put my hand on my heart a lot of the time. I really like the practice. Oh shoot, I'm forgetting the name of it. Of thinking of a color and then noticing like 5 things around you that are that color, or like any of those sort of presencing practices, I think are really helpful because, there's that work and the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And then we have an increasing amount of evidence that like it is all the trauma, all the hurt, all the harm, all of that. Unless we proactively work to release it's somewhere in our body. Maybe it's in our fascia, maybe it's in the muscles. And so how do you release that? And again, that's, other people are expert in that work not on the releasing part, not me, but I will say for myself included, and all of my clients who have taken that step, it is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's science.
Yeah.
It's not just woo woo, is it? The medical field
No.
knows. Bessel van der
Yeah.
Kolk, I
Yes,
think,
Van
wrote
Cook.
that book,
Thank
right?
you.
Like he was a medical doctor,
Mhm.
wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That book comes up all the time when our conversation turns to this kind of awareness, this body awareness. Yeah. Pivotal.
Yeah, and it's working in that tandem, right? Like, so what is your mind telling you? And like, but also I think it could get pretty, like, I can imagine there's some listeners now that are like, oh, this just sounds like a lot of work. Like, I don't know that I want to do all that work. And that's really fair, right? So it's why I go back to like, just notice every morning when you're brushing your teeth is the easiest. What are you saying to yourself? Are you setting yourself up for success for the day? Are you reflecting back on the day? And if so, if you're brushing your teeth at the end of the day, what are you telling yourself? Because you're writing history. You're writing your history every time.
And what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Yeah.
I became aware at one point that I was buzzing, like my body was literally buzzing. And who knows how long it had been buzzing, but just that, whoa, what is happening? Right. Just that noticing of, all right, that doesn't feel good in the body.
And you felt that all over your body?
I'm trying to think of where I would normally, now I feel it in my eyes. Like my eyes will kind of like twitch. And it's like hand on the heart, sit down. Why are we rushing so much? Just sit down and sit with it and do some breathing.
Oh, breathing.
It 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 kind of, I want to say, it almost is a lot of work, but over the rest of our lives kind of thing. Like not so much work just to sit and take 3 deep breaths, is it? But maybe it is work that's over the rest of our lives
I would
kind of.
say it isn't in terms of the time allocation. I mean, we can all take 3 deep breaths. It is work because, again, if that is not a pattern for you, your subconscious mind is going to work against you.
Can ease it in. Yeah.
You could sit, let's just stick with this example, take 3 deep breaths and feel like really a lot of discomfort in that act. And that's normal. So, or whatever your hand on your heart, you're gonna be like, that feels weird. Yeah, it's going to, but that doesn't make it bad or wrong. It just makes it new.
Well, you talked about danger and safety before. Like the body will, I think, say that feels dangerous to me
Yeah.
right now because I don't know what that is. You've never done that before.
Yeah.
or
Why are we doing
something.
this?
Yeah. Again, I'm no expert in this, but it's like we have to work to make it safe, don't we? Feel safe in the body.
Yeah. Because I mean, bodily safety, psychological safety, it's all interconnected. And then the question, because at some point, a client is gonna be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. Like it's hard. And I'm like that, you're in choice about whether or not you want to change the narrative. Can you imagine? What if? I love what if questions. Like, what if in a week it felt more calming, more natural? Like, could you stick with it that long? Would it be worth it? Would it be worth it to stick with it just to see how long it took for that to feel less weird, less awkward, to use that young woman's expression, because it will. And then, we're like, oh, well, this isn't working for me. It's like, not exactly, which is very confusing.
Can the what if be, well, what if it doesn't feel good today, but what if you try it again
Yeah.
tomorrow? Or what if you try it again next week? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's a timing thing.
Yeah. I worked a lot with time horizons.
Oh, what's that?
Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a quarter? Is it a year? I coach a lot around time horizon and altitudes. So what I found is, there's some folks, but I'll speak for myself. I am like a mid to high altitude person, right? In terms of like work. I would prefer, Beth, if I'm honest, the details, like I don't love it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That would be the low altitude.
And there are plenty of people who are like, I'm so uncomfortable up there in vision and strategy. And like, I'm a doer, I'm on the ground. And so we all have like our natural tendencies that way. There's not a tidy mapping, like I don't know, there's an intuitive part of me that's like, well, the folks that are really low to the ground, their time horizons would be smaller, which isn't always true. But what I will say is we all have natural inclinations about like how far out can we think about things? How far out does it feel natural to plan and helpful to plan? So there's a difference between natural and helpful. So for me, I like to think in quarters. Like I'll set my vision for the year and my goals for the year, and then I back it into quarters and then months. Much less than that is not helpful to me. It's just not, because of the rhythm. So I also think about rhythm a lot. Like, what's my natural rhythm? And if I have my year, quarter, month locked in, I trust myself enough to know that if like I have a day and all that happens, or whatever, like that's not the rhythm of the day, that's okay because over the course of a month, it's going to work itself out. There are other people, I'm sure some of your listeners are like, where are your daily to-do lists? Like that is my
Yes.
jam, right?
Yeah.
That's my jam. And then my question to those folks, and when I work with clients around this, is like, but what are they all adding up to? Are you clear on what the daily actions are adding up to? Is the cumulative effect what you want? Right. And so that's like those time horizon questions. And are you resisting something? Because there's always learning in the resistance. Right. Like Yeah, and so for a while, I was like, I'd look around and be like, "I'm the only person who, like, kinda doesn't have a daily to-do list." Like, "What's that about?" Like, maybe I need so I played around with daily to-do lists, and finally I was like, "It actually doesn't serve me." It makes you remember something, like something time sensitive, I'll write it down, but I don't do a lot of that.
So it relates to self-talk because someone could be looking at someone else going, "Oh my gosh, why am I not doing lists like she is? Because I clearly don't know how to organize my time and blah, blah, blah."
I should
Yeah.
I should do it like Beth. You could. Is it gonna serve you? Right? And I mean, that's this again and again and again is sure. I mean, I was literally sitting in a meeting with my fellow faculty members one time, and I was like, well, she has a bullet journal and she has this other way of doing it. Some people have like a two-step to do thing between the daily and the weekly. And I like it was totally stressing me out. And then I went into the self-talk of like, well, yeah, Erica, but they're like all tenured professors, blah, blah, blah. They must know better. So I had to step back from that and just really go back to like, is that gonna do you wanna play with that? Play with it. Nothing's stopping you. I've played with all sorts of different things. Actually, even earlier this year, I was like, I'm gonna get like one of those, maybe it's that I, need more color coding or something. So I got like an old school, nope. I
Didn't
filled it
work.
out and I reached out to a friend who I know it like uses it to great effect. I'm like, do you want this one? I've barely touched it.
Yeah, it's brand new, wrote on one page.
Yeah.
Makes me think about designing sessions or meetings or whatever it is we're facilitating because when we design, some people might be really comfortable doing it 3 months ahead of time and 2 months ahead of time. And I do a little bit of that, but I also do a lot of design or redesign, I should say, in the last 24 hours or 36 hours because it's fresh for me. And I go, oh, all of a sudden I have a great idea and be like, oh, I should do that. But that could be really stressful if I were working with someone who really needed to lock it down. I don't know. There's messages we can tell ourselves about, oh, why can't I plan ahead? But I love the sort of, I'm not super last minute, but just that getting it back into my head. I've worked on it subconsciously for a while. I get a better idea. Yeah, like there's so many self messages we could have around what is helpful, what is not helpful, but we're just ourselves doing the designs.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting in your language that I'll point out is the either or of it.
Well, it's both kind of for
So
me.
so
Yeah, like I
that's what I wanna underscore for listeners is, like, this is about the both and, it's not like either I can do it like that person, either I can do it in advance, or I can do this other thing. I think part of the confidence that comes over time is the clarity for self around the both and, or the all and. I have a dear colleague, who always talks about the all and, which is harder to hold. But again, our subconscious mind wants an either or. And therefore, we are very socialized into an either or black and white thinking. So, just an invitation to listeners, because I know you know the both and I'm sure your listeners do too, because I cannot possibly be the first guest that you've had this talked about it. But that's a higher level of evolution to be able
mhm.
to hold the both and the most fundamental example, people are struggling, to let themselves do that. I'm like, we have to inhale and we have to exhale. We need both. Can't have either or we die. There's this Barry Johnson's work around polarity management is very powerful. Folks haven't explored that. It's like, what are these two things that you need? Innovation and consistency is a classic one in an organizational context. How do you hold the both and then how do you, as appropriate, expand to the all and, right? Because even that is like, actually, there's even more complexity to it. But we're pretty drawn to either or. And I this is something I really work on with myself and my self talk is the black and white.
In liberating structures, it's the wicked questions,
Yeah.
it's the paradoxes where both things are true. And I've done that so many times with groups and they really get on board with it because there's no answer for those paradoxes, that we do have to hold up both ends. So whether it's about planning or whatever it is that's coming up in the work context. But this piece is about communication too, because if we're working with someone else to design or facilitate, or our client or whoever it is, like just like you had brought up with the woman in India, like when we say these things out loud to the people we're working with, then we can, normalize it, get it out in the open, go, hey, this is how I work. I tend to do a lot of work around 2 months in advance. And then I kind of let it percolate for a while and sit. And then about the last week, I come in and do, some changes and just expect that. And let's talk about it. I don't know. So there's like communication around this piece as well.
Yeah. And self-awareness, the ability to be self-aware enough to know that and then communicate it. Like whenever I keynote, I always drive the organizers a little bit batty with my propensity to tweak right before, right? They're like, well, we'd like if you're going to use a PowerPoint, which I don't always, especially for keynotes, but I often do. And I'm like, I'll send you one.
Yeah, it won't be the final
I'm
one.
probably going to send you another one that morning, because the other request I always make is, can I, if I'm the closing keynote, I want to hang out throughout the day and attend sessions because I want to be listening for context and continuity, right? Or can I come, to even a session or something the day prior, if I'm the opening keynote, like whatever. If it's one day, they have to give me context. But I like to really hear and see it so that it's as salient and as possible, for the audience. And that means that I'm tweaking my deck at 4:30 a.m. Like, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. But you could be saying to yourself, if you weren't as savvy in the self-talk, you could be saying, oh my gosh, why does everyone else, why can they submit their conference presentation 2 weeks early, like the organizers have asked? Because I've been in that situation. I'm like, nope, I'm not solidifying it 2 weeks ahead. But you could be beating yourself up about it, going, why couldn't I do this like everyone else? But you know yourself.
Yeah. And I know that that's how I bring greatest value. So, and I tell them well in advance, like the first conversation we have, or actually it's in my contracts, even that's like how much I'm like, this is part of how I bring value, is like, I'm good at listening, kind of reading the room and like bringing some things in. So just trust that they have to trust that it's not me leaving it. Cause I mean, this is their concern, right? It's like, oh, are you leaving? Are you building your full deck at 4:30 a.m.? Right. Fair enough. That would not be great.
Yikes.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you just now thinking about this keynote? No.
We would say it's responsive, like responsive facilitation, basically. Like it's a thing, right? It's, we can be emergent, we can be responsive. Like that's a really skilled facilitator in that moment. Present your keynote, whatever word we're using, right? It's responsive, and there's a planetness. I'm making up a word, I think, but to that responsiveness. Yeah. Erica, yeah. I know we're friends. We could spend another hour doing this. This is really fascinating. I mean, I love this conversation and what I'm getting out of it as well. But where do you want to leave us? If people are starting this foray into facilitating their self-talk, what can it do for them? Why should they start?
What it can do for you is fundamentally shift your perspective on your life. It really well and truly can. And I've experienced that firsthand for sure. And that may sound lofty, right? And it's true, but so in a more immediate sense. So for somebody who's like, okay, shift, I'm in, that's one thing. But for people more in the immediate, I would say I was going to say successful, but that's not quite right. Successful in the sense of like you figured out your life and you're living it in integrity between your inner and outer worlds, like that type of success, not like promotion or raise or whatever. But when you're really clear and when there's alignment between your inner world and your outer world, your inner dialogue, your outer dialogue, that brings so much ease to your life, right? Because you're not trying to make sense of them anymore. They live in unison. And that, self-talk isn't a problem to solve. It's a dynamic to manage. Right. So I really want listeners to be like this. You're in it for the rest of your lives with your self-talk. So what's the relationship that you want to be having with it? And, just use if it's new to you, just notice. And then nope. Really embrace the word nope, I would say, because it allows you like, oh, well, I've noped that same thing like 4 times. That's interesting. Right. But just that it's worth it. And again, in a time of chaos and a lot of uncertainty, this is one thing that they can for certain improve. Right. You have agency over it.
That's such an important message right now and always, not just right now, but always. Thank you so much for being with me. Thanks for letting me come and talk about my favorite topic. I always love when I can have friends of mine on the podcast. It really doesn't happen very often, but I loved this conversation with Erica. Not only was it great to catch up with her, but she always teaches me something. And I hope that you feel she taught you something and got you thinking about something in a more deeper way today around how you talk to yourself. I love that she shared with us her 3-step process, the notice, nope, and nudge. So easy and so quick. You'll remember how she and I talked about how we can do this very fast, sometimes in front of the room, and we need to do this when we realize some of those negative thoughts are bubbling up and we need to deal with them and get on with the work that we're there to do with the group. So you can use notice, nope, and nudge. I want to really say it with a really true end sound. Notice, nope, and nudge for this process for yourself. I also really love that Erica gave us the idea to use something that we do that's very mundane, like brushing our teeth twice a day, to just take that as time to check in with ourselves, to think back, to reflect on how we might have been talking to ourselves throughout the day or the day before, and use it to just become more aware of some of that self-talk to ourselves. Maybe it's not brushing teeth for you. Maybe it's another thing that you do regularly a couple of times throughout your day to try to have that be the hook where you remember to do that and increase that noticing skill for yourself. As she said, it's about this noticing, and it's about then changing the patterns of how we talk to ourselves. And hopefully that allows us to show up in our facilitation work, in our world, in our just everyday life. You know, I love talking about everyday life because I just wrote a book about it. But just think about how this noticing and this practicing can help us change the patterns of our self-talk so that we can do better work in the world and take care of ourselves, most importantly as well. Thank you so much to Erica Barnhart for coming and having this conversation with me. It was a true pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode as well. Coming up on the podcast in the next episode, I talked to Claire Schneeberger. Claire has written an excellent book called Holding Space, The Essential Guide to Leading Meditation and Mindfulness Practices. Ooh, this is a good one. Claire and I have a great conversation about how to incorporate meditation and mindfulness practices into our facilitation work, especially if we really don't know how to do it. So join us next time for that episode with Claire. I hope you do, and thanks again for listening. As always, for this episode and all episodes, you can find the show notes at facilitatingonpurpose.ca. If you'd like to share feedback about anything I'm up to or want to share back with me tips that you have for talking to yourself, as we were talking about in this particular episode, I would love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much to Mary Chan at Organized Sound Productions for the excellent editing that she does for this and every episode. Thanks, and see you next time.